Hello everybody, my name is Raxtus.
And I'm Soulcale.
And welcome back to Hollow Knight. Well, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we ended the Path of Pain. I did not know how far I was into the Path of Pain when we finished, because I was just so set on, I had other things going on during that end of that day, and I had to just completely quit out and I had to come back. But when you do come back, anytime during the Path of Pain and you reload into Hollow Knight, this is where you start off. So if you're halfway through, if you're 3/4 of the way through, if you are 99% of the way through and you have to end, it will bring you back here. So to start off, we're just going to take a look at some of the charms that we had on. And then we're going to kind of go through what we think might have been a little bit better. So we both have the Deep Focus, we both have Quick. Looks like we have all the same charms. We have Stalwart Shell, and we also have Steady Body alongside Grub Song. Now there are some really good ones here. Being Deep Focus just allows you to heal more often, especially if you get past part 3 of this run. Deep Focus is really good. Quick Focus really just helps you heal a little bit more. If it were me and I was going to pick out the charms, I might actually have Quick Slash. Quick Slash would have actually been a little bit more helpful halfway through, maybe a little bit more helpful, because it allows you to attack faster. It allows you to, if you're too tight or too close to something and you need to pull away from whatever the object is, it allows you to be able to attack a little bit more often. It doesn't matter how much damage you can do at this point when you're doing the Path of Pain. It more so matters how often you can swing that blade just to get yourself out of a really tight situation. And Quick Slash might have actually been a really good one. Grub Song, it's a 50-50. If you do touch a blade, you will get soul back. So Grub Song is a really, really good one here. Same thing with Deep Focus. Deep Focus just makes sure that your soul lasts longer, especially if, again, third part through the entire thing. We'll go through the parts of the Path of Pain, but especially when you get to the third part, Deep Focus becomes kind of more of a shining gem during that entire part because of its efficiency. Its efficiency is really, really good. And Stalwart Shell and Steady Body are also really, really good, because when you get hit with Steady Body, instead of you going in a random direction when you get hit by something, it'll fling you. And Steady Body just keeps you kind of centered where you are, rather than getting flung so far and you could potentially hit something else. And it just kind of makes it a little bit more annoying, especially if you could do an easy recovery to get back to where you were, and either that or finish out the section that you were in. Steady Body is a really good one, just keep you kind of on track on where you are and help you kind of get to where you need to be going. Same thing with Stalwart Shell. When you recover from damage, it'll basically make you invulnerable for a little bit more time. You could say this might be useful, might not be useful, but if it were me, you could almost swap out Quick Focus with something like Quick Slash. And yes, you won't be able to heal as quickly as you can with both the Deep Focus and the Quick Focus. Quick Focus is making your heals a lot faster, but Quick Slash could come in handy, especially when you're trying to pull away from an object or anything like that, versus Deep or Quick Focus, where a little bit of added healing time really doesn't, I don't feel like it really makes up for the availability to actually strike a little bit sooner when you need to actually strike a little bit sooner. So Quick Slash actually, and I think you kind of agree with this one too,
I do.
is it could actually pull you in a little bit further. So Quick Slash could actually be more useful there. Long Nail, Mark of Pride, completely avoid, completely do not use, because you have so much range when you're striking. You're going to be able to strike from a further distance that could push you back into one of the walls, and that could eventually, or that could evidently put you into one of the walls and you could take damage. I actually swapped this out kind of earlier in the rounds, and I was like, no, because you're so far away, and when you strike, you're going to rebound yourself into a wall, especially around tight spaces or anything like that. So just straight up, don't even use those. Just completely don't use them throughout the entire run. Okay, so should I start the Path of Pain? No. Advice, I kind of reading through my notes here, but do God Home first. Do anything else first. Do the entire rest of the game first. This is my advice before you even hit the path of pain. The path of pain is literally the path of pain. Do the easy modes on God mode first. Do anything else first to get yourself more attuned to how Hollow Knight handles, how he moves, how his jump animations are, how his healing animations are, how his super dash is. Get yourself more aligned with how the Hollow Knight actually moves around before even attempting to do the path of pain, especially if you're brand new to platformers and trying to jump around an obstacle course or anything else like that. Get to know Hollow Knight a little bit more first before you even attempt the path of pain. Another piece of advice is, especially if you have gone through God Home or any of these other really difficult ones first, I'm not saying do God Home to the point where you get all the Ascended probably versions of it done first. I'm probably just saying more so just like the basic version of God Home, because I believe for the basic version of God Home, you have to go re-through, and we haven't even done this yet, but you have to go through and you have to refight Grim, the Nightmare King. So I'm saying go and redo that fight because it is really essential. But here, the first path of the first entrance of the path of pain, and like again, like this, how it's so like it's in there, that is not smart. I wish you could just walk through the wall and the wall is like an illusionary wall.
Well, that would be cool.
That would have been a better choice, or to have a crack in the wall where you break it and you can easily see that it's there. Having it where it's this tiny little alcove at the very top here, where it's just a little tiny platform, that does not make sense to me.
No.
You need to have it where it's an illusionary wall or it's a cracked wall to make it a little bit more obvious. Otherwise, no one's going to actually find it to get into the path of pain. So yeah, do God Home. Just do a few basic stuff like that. Go through God Home and do some of the more basic stuff. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier. I have not done any of the God Home stuff yet, but I would highly advise going and doing that first before coming here and even attempting to do the path of pain. So start it off, we're going to go ahead and pull up a map here. The first part, going through all the 7 different parts. I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing?
I was having fun with the long dash.
Oh, okay. You're long dashing around having fun?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to have fun.
Okay. Yeah, like this, especially the first part, even the first part, comparison to like the 5th or the 7th is really, really hard.
Oh, yeah.
But for this first part, it's pretty difficult. And then, of course, as it goes on, it gets more and more difficult. So the first part, the most annoying part about the first part, I'd have to say, and I'm just going to kind of like highlight the hardest parts of each of the parts as you go through, and maybe some things that could be changed and maybe some things that could be better going through it, especially when I've done like Mario Maker or Warframe and you're making these platforms and you're making them really hard for the player to go through, and you're just pushing on the extremities of what the game can actually do and what you can actually do with your character, and how hard or how high and how far you can jump, and you're just really testing the limits of the actual game system. There's some things that you can say are acceptable, and then there's some things that you can say that just straight up aren't, because of how ridiculous it is and how fast you have to be on your reaction time, or how tight the tolerance is on that spacing. And man, that's really tight. Like, you know, maybe 1 out of 100 jumps that I do, I could barely make that jump, and it is possible, but it's really tight. This is the point where it's extremities. It's just like, hey, I can barely make that jump. I can barely get this done. And we'll just go through each of the parts and just kind of highlight the more annoying things that kind of stick out. So for the first part, and we're actually in the first part right now, but for the first part, the sod blade in the first part is actually the most annoying, and I can actually just hop up here and show that real quick. But this part here is the most annoying, because for that second saw blade that comes down, you have no idea where its position is. And right there it came down, and you're able to see that top of the saw blade. But those saw blades are moving. Those just move up and down, and you don't know where the position is on those saw blades at all. They could be at the very top, they could be coming down, they could be going up, or it could be far down and you can actually see it and you can register that it's there before you actually make your jump or do anything like that. This first saw blade is the most annoying because you cannot hold on to the wall, you cannot just sit there, you have to make that jump. There are other portions through the Path of Pain where you actually have a breather. You can jump on the wall and you can just kind of sit there and wait for it. With this, there's that third ledge up there that has the saw blade, and there's only a little bit of an alcove there. You cannot just sit there. If you sit there for too long, you're just going to get tired of jumping, and it's just too tight of a gap to actually sit and wait for that saw blade to come down. Either you put that saw blade a little bit further down, either that you put that saw blade a little bit further up for that single static saw blade. You move it up or down, I don't care which, but the thing is be able to have a ledge where you can take a breather. Either that, or you could take that saw blade that's further up, that's actually moving the ligament that's moving that saw blade, and you could actually create a space below it so that you could avoid hitting that saw blade. I don't know which way you'd want to go around and do that. I really don't care, but the main thing is that saw blade, you cannot see it. It's not visual, it's not part of your screen, and when you jump up there the first time or two, it's really, like I say, even during the run, it's like a 25 or a 20% chance that you're going to scrap a run because you just don't know where the position is on that blade, and you jump past that portion, and you're not going to sit there forever trying to jump around and trying to stay up there because you have so little spacing. You don't have much of a breather room in there. You can't really just sit there. You're just going to jump, and 20%, 25% of the time, you're just going to hit that blade. That is the most annoying part of the entire first section. There is a second blade, and the second blade that moves is actually pretty easy. It's after you get off of that blade up there, you jump over the alcove, you go up the three little bugs, and then down below there's that moving blade there. But the big advantage is you're going down. You have that long wall on the left side that you can just kind of slide down off of, and you've got a lot of time to be able to view that blade that's down there and be able to assess your situation and know what you're doing before you go down through that alcove. So that's actually pretty good. And to be honest, like, the whole thing is really unfair with the whole Path of Pain, but when you're going down to that second portion, you have no clue what you're supposed to be doing. It's just straight up a fall of death. You have to fall multiple times through that tunnel to be able to gauge and to be able to tell where you're supposed to go, even to the first place, to get to where you're supposed to go. And not knowing ahead of time, you're going to die a few times going down that tunnel. But as soon as you get the idea of where that tunnel's going, then you can easily make it through the rest of that tunnel. But especially on the first part, that first saw blade killing you 20 to 25% of the times that you run up there and you try to complete or try to do the first section, that to me is completely unacceptable because you don't know where that blade is, where the position of that blade is. And when it comes down and it kills you 20% of the time or 25% of the time, that's just annoying. That's just straight up annoying. So if it were me, I don't know what I would do. I'd probably make a static blade that's up there and you have to tightly move around it or something like that. But again, that saw blade where you can't get a visual, you can't grasp a visual of where it's at, that's just annoying. I agree with the falling part on the left where there's that little path of saw blades and there's that bramble, because again, you can actually saw hop. And especially during the fourth portion of the entire Path of Pain, you saw hop off of those blades. I agree with that. That's very easy to do, and you could easily make it past that little falling gap to the left. So for the entire first part, the most painful part of the first part, the saw blade that moves up and down on the far right side. It's the most annoying part because you have no visual of where it's at, and you don't know when it's coming or where it's going. The second blade on the far left where it's moving, you can tell because you have a whole bunch of breather room. You have the entire left wall that you can just sit on and wait and watch that blade and see where it's at, and then make the move to get into that little crevice and move around that blade. So for the entire first part, I'd have to say the hardest part is that saw blade. Second part of the entire Path of Pain, just like I told you halfway through the run, it's easy. It was really easy to do that
Yeah.
entire second section. That second section is just a whole bunch of just floating debris that's in the air, a whole bunch of little thorns. But when you know what you're doing, it's very easy to just jump around the entire platforms to get around the entire second portion of the phase. That is super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much to that there too. To the third section. This was aggravating, but at the same time, it's doable. It's just really aggravating because if you get past the first part of part 3, you cannot go back. And if you try, well, you could potentially go back. If you're really, really good, you could probably go back. But saying that going back is not going forward is enough to just say you cannot go back and you just need to keep on trying to go forward. Because if you're down to 3 hearts and you try to go back and you end up dying trying to go back, it's actually counterproductive to just going forward. So, again, trying to get past the first part of the part 3, you cannot go back. If you die trying to finish out part 3, if you get past the first section of part 3, you get to the second section of part 3, and you die either in the second section or the third section of just part 3, where there's that little alcove that you have to maneuver around, and you basically fall, do your dash, do your jump, and jump around the walls and get past those sections. That's what you do through both of those sections. Sections of part 3. You do part 3 section 1, part 3 section 2. You fall, dash, jump, and that's basically the entire part of part 3 of sections 1 and 2. But if you die on section 2 or section 3, because there's no totem there, you can't get any soul back, so it's just amount of health that you actually have stored in your health bar. And if you're low, or if you don't have enough health and you get down to that last mask, you only have 1 try left, and there's no totem, there's no help.
No.
You cannot heal at that point. So if you die during that section, it'll set you back all the way to part 1, and you'll have to do the entire run again. So again, you can't go back, and if you die, you reset the entire path. So that's the biggest pain of part 3. Part 3, that's the entire biggest pain right there. The saw blades aren't really that big of a pain, especially section 3, where you have to do that big jump over the little spikes that are up on the wall. That's actually really easy. I've done that several times through, I don't know how many different platforms, but it's jumping as far as you can, as far as you're able to. You're just holding down the jump button, you're just jumping all the way over those spikes. That is actually very doable. That's very easy to do. The main thing is that I really don't like about part 3, there's no totem. So if you die in section 3 part 2 or section 3 part 3, you just straight reset the entire path of pain. You have to start all the way at the beginning. There is, though, after you get past section 3 to part 4, there is redemption, because there is a totem, and as soon as you complete section 4, there is that lever that you can hit, and now when you complete sections 1, 2, you can go straight past 3 and 4 all the way to 5. So that's really, really nice that they have that lever there, that's available, and that just completely subjugates those 2 sections, sections 3 and 4. So that's nice. Section 4, you could say it's kind of hard, it's kind of easy. I'd actually say it's actually kind of easy. You just have to do a lot of saw hopping. You have to just do downward nail strikes, and you have to just do a whole bunch of saw hopping. As soon as you get enough of saw hopping skill down, you're going to be able to easily breeze that by. The only thing I could say is there is that blade on the left side of section 4 after you get past the entire saw room. I'd call it the saw room. As soon as you get past the saw room, you get on that little blade on the left, and that blade could be either in the position of up or being down. This is where quick slash would have been way useful.
Yeah.
Going through that, because then you're able to just, oh, I mistimed my strike. Now you can strike again, and you could recover. A lot of my run could have actually been saved if I had quick slash. And the thing is not having the availability to switch over charms doing the path of pain, or changing my charm. Oh wait, this doesn't work during the path of pain. This works better.
I think I had quick slash on before.
Oh really?
I think so. I'd have to go back.
Well, yeah, but you were all the way to section, what was it, 5 or 6? You're at section 6, and I was at section 7 at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you did all sections 1 through 7, it's pretty legitimate that we had the same charms. So you didn't really have quick slash. You might have had it at the very beginning.
I did have it at the beginning.
Yeah, and tried it out for a little bit, but during probably even section 1, you probably swapped it out very early.
I was still on section 1.
Because you never reset, though. That's the thing, is
No,
you never died in
no.
section 3. I died in section 3, and I had to redo sections 1, 2, and then 3 to finish out 3. And I was very antsy on section 3 because I knew if I died, I'd have to
Yeah.
reset and I'd have to go all the way through sections 1 and 2 again. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was not doing that again.
Nope.
So thankfully I did make it through section 3, and then I continued on all the way to 7. And we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, section 3, section 4, the little blade that goes up and down, just being able to saw hop. Of course, if you had quick slash, it'd be a little bit easier. But as soon as you get on top of that blade, it really doesn't matter too about the blade being up or down there, because you can time your slashes until that blade comes down. And you can just sit there and like you have time and space to just kind of whack, 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 whack until the blade finally comes down. And then when you get on top of that blade, you just do a strike, and then you just hold your moth wing jump as soon as you get on top of that blade. And that's very easy to do. And that gives you a lot of height. And I believe I told you that there too, is just hit the blade, and as soon as it's traveling up, do your jump, because then you're going to get way more jump height rather than just trying to strike it.
Yeah.
But again, like if you had quick slash, you could just keep on slashing the blade, and it would not matter about jumping because you could just keep on hopping on it.
Also, I had the problem of me hopping on it too much, and it still killed me.
Yeah, but again, like quick, if you had quick, you'd be able to hit the blade more often, and that would be able to repel you even further upwards. So possibly with quick, which I'm not going to go through the whole thing again,
No.
just to try quick out, but possibly with quick, you could attack quick enough to repel yourself further than the blade is actually traveling. So just saying that, you could potentially just use quick and you wouldn't have to even do the long jump. And then of course, once you get up there on the wall, you do a nice big long jump after the blade hits its peak on the height. Then you do your big jump and you end up on that left wall there. And then as soon as you end up on the left wall, you can just kind of hover there and wait for that saw blades to come by. And then the top saw blade is the one you want to just be straight up behind. You hold your super dash right behind that blade, and as soon as that blade passes to the point where you can't visually see it anymore, and this is the thing that I like, I could actually see that saw blade, so you know what was happening. Some of the course you couldn't see, that's kind of fine, but again, like having everything in the dark where you can't see it, to me it's like I want to be able to see the rest of the course. I want to be able to see where I'm going and what is actually happening before it happens.
Right.
And a lot of the time that's just not the case with the Path of Pain. You're just completely flying in the blind until you learn the entire course while you're moving, which is really insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of platformers don't do that. They'll show you the rest of the course before you even traverse into that area. And then it's like, okay, well now I can see what I need to do and I know what I need to do. But for that saw blade, you just kind of sit behind that top saw blade, super dash, get right behind it, cancel out the super dash, do a simple jump, slash downwards, and then of course you dash, and that's where the lever is. And you pull the lever and you get to section 5.
Yeah.
So nothing really hard on part 4. It's just learning how to actually saw hop. When you go section 3 though, section 3 is really annoying and really just aggravating, because if you die, you reset. You reset the entire, you have to go back through section 1, section 2, and then section 3. And I'm glad it's at section 3 that section 3 is at, and not section 4 or 5. Because if it was section 5 and you were given no totem, you would have quit way earlier than anything. And I'm glad it was section 3 because it was a lot earlier, and you're able to overcome that death right there. So that is really nice that it is section 3, but again, like you have to go through sections 1 and 2, which I mean 2 is easy to get to 3, and then yeah, so it's basically just beating section 1 all over again just to get to 3. So that's not really hard. And then, of course, getting to section 5. Section 5 was hard.
That took me a while.
That took me a while, too. The best advice I could give for that one is there's a saw blade at the very start of section 5. Well, not the immediate saw blade, but there's 3 saw blades that traverse the entire area. There's 2 kind of in the middle of the area that go up and down, and they meet right in the center. And then there's a saw blade on the far right, and you have to actually traverse that one. So when you're below that saw blade, the best advice there is wait for the saw blade to travel down, and then as soon as it travels up, just jump around the obstacles and dash left against that wall. You've got a lot of breather room. And then as soon as that saw blade goes back down and then goes back up again, wait for the saw blade at the top of its peak. And then as soon as it starts to travel down, then proceed to jump right and then go around that saw blade and just keep on jumping. And hopefully you dodge the second blade that comes down or goes up, or whichever way it's going to travel. But hopefully you dodge. There is a wall there that you can kind of play protect with that, and you just get high enough on it, and then that saw blade in the middle goes down, and you just saw hop all the way over there. It's just completely random. At some point, though, it's just completely random. If you miss that saw blade, if you're skilled enough to miss the saw blade, and if you actually can make it past that point, it is very quick. That is the hardest part, I would have to say, of the Path of Pain that I've experienced so far. Yeah. And then, of course, going to part 6, it's just a lot of just saw hopping. It's actually easier than sections 4 or 5. Sections 5 is the hardest that I'd have to say that it is so far, but section 6 is just a lot of hopping on that top section until you get to the far left side, and then you get up into section 7. So, I mean, there is one saw blade in section 6, but like 3 rotating ones, the ones that are right between the bugs that you have to go around. Mm-hmm. But that's really easy because you can see the saw blades and you can easily hop around them. You can really play it safe. So those saw blades I really don't even count as even being a challenge because they're just not hard at all. So then as soon as you get all the way to the left side, you get all the way up, then there's section 7. And this is where I ended on, and I was like, looked at my time on my clock, and I was like, I do not have time. I've already spent 4, if not 5 hours. I think it was a little bit of an over-exaggeration with 6, but I believe it was around 4, if not 5 hours that we were sitting and we were doing, and we had to have a little break in between. And I was hoping my computer wouldn't crash, because if it crashed, then I'd have to reset everything, and I would if that happened, I would just be done at that point.
Yeah.
I would have. So we even actually took a break. I don't know if it was. I think it was at part 5 that we took a break, and we were just like, we gotta have a break, gotta have a breather, gotta go eat something, gotta do something else, and then come back to it, because it was like already 2 hours into that point, and we're just like, or 2 or 3 hours, and we're just like, man, we gotta have a break, because this is crazy, especially having to do it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
Having to do it all in one sitting is just ridiculous. So section 7. Oh my goodness. And you didn't even get to section 7.
I did not.
Okay, section 7. That's tough. I wish I knew what I knew now, which was I was one screen away. Literally one screen away from finishing section 7. And I thought there was going to be a whole nother section beyond section 7. I had no clue. That was the exact end right there. I had no clue. And the thing is I looked it up afterwards, and I'm sitting on the couch and I'm looking it up on my phone. I'm like, wait a minute. This is where I was. Right there on the very end of where that saw blade was. If I would have gone down under and just jumped over, I would have been at the very end of the Path of Pain. I had no clue until I looked it up, and I was like, are you kidding me? If I'd known what I had known now, I wouldn't have taken 20 minutes at the very end of the video to talk about how annoying this was, and that I wasn't at the end. I was literally at the end right there.
Yeah.
I would have just straight up done it, and I would have been finished, and I would have been at the end. All you get at the very end is a cutscene, and then you get booted out of the Path of Pain, and that's it. So you do this 7-section segment, all to get one cutscene, And then you get booted out and you're like, that was a great reward. I didn't get a charm. I didn't get anything significant. I just got this breather memory moment of, oh, this is these two people, and you can go watch the cinematic somewhere else. But it's just seriously, just for one scene, that is ridiculous. But yeah, so for the entire end of section 7, it's just you bullet dash right, you jump around some obstacles, you slash downward on a few saw blades, and I really didn't like the saw blades at that time. But now thinking about it, it's like it actually could have actually been easier than I was thinking. The thing is, again, with the charms, being able to swap out charms, there is no availability. That's something I've got to just kind of hammer on Hollow Knight, is just you can't swap out your charms doing the entire Path of Pain. If someone had Long Nail and they got to section 5 and then section 6 they decide, hey, you know what, Long Nail, I want to toss Long Nail out of my... You can't. You got to finish the entire section, the entire Path of Pain with whatever charms you equip from the very start. And not having the availability to do that halfway through or even going past section 1 is just really annoying.
It is. It's
just really annoying. So again, like, I wish you could swap out charms, but like after you get past the little bullet jump and the obstacles, there's just some saw hopping that you got to do. It is kind of annoying because those saws can literally be in any position. Same thing as section 1, and I'd have to say section 1 and 7 are the only points where it's really annoying. But same thing as section 1, that blade can be at any position. With section 4, I don't have any problem with it. With any of the other sections, it's appropriate because you can figure out ways to work around it. But when you're at section 7 and 1, especially 1, because you can't move around that blade fast enough, you have to know its position, and you don't have a breather moment to actually move around that blade. And then especially on section 7, you have no idea where the orientation is on those blades.
Yeah.
So you don't have a breather, and I'd have to say if not 50% of your runs or greater, you're just going to end up dying and having to get reset, which is really annoying. So like there is a reason this is called Path of Pain, because that final ending area is the hardest, because it's I don't know if it's timed or not, because the thing is I don't know if it's timed or not. I didn't really have enough time to actually assess if it was timed or not, because I didn't have enough time. Especially with 7 hours or 4 hours or whatever it was, 4 or 5 hours that it was, going through the entire Path of Pain.
4 hours and 38 minutes.
Yeah, and then you look at your clock and you're like, man, this is really late. I need to be going, I need to be doing other things. It was so annoying, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, it would have just been a few saw hops away and I would have been at the very end. And I'm so sorry that I was not able to finish that out. But at the same time, it's just like, you have to do it all in one sitting. That is just annoying. That is just ridiculous. And I was one screen away. If I had an extra hour of time, I would have been able to finish out the entire Path of Pain. I would have been able to see the cinematic. And I would have been able to help you out to finish out the rest of the end of that, and then we could have called it. But we didn't have an extra hour, so that's just that is just what it is. But again, like the saw blades, when they're moving like that, like with the section 1, it's a 25% to 20% chance that you're just going to run into the saw blade, and you're just going to have to try it again and try it again and try it again. And the same thing with section 7. When you get to section 7. There's not much you can do. Like, either the saw blades are in the correct position or they're not. And I didn't have enough time to actually test, but you could actually have it where you had enough timing where you could get the timing down to actually get around the saw blades. Maybe every 3 or 4 revolutions of those spikes going up, that now the saw blades are in the correct position, that you could have it on the downward spiral or the downward stroke of that saw blade, so you can actually get over those. You could have timed it. Let's say that, the saw blade's down now I go, and then, I died, okay, now I get reset, and then in your head you're just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then as soon as the 4th spike goes up or the 3rd spike goes up or whatever the timing is, now I need to go. Now is the time that I need to do my super dash and then now the saw blade's down in the downward position. Now I can go past this point. Again, I didn't have enough time to actually test out the timing. I had no idea what the timing was. I just ran out of time. So that is what it is. Especially with the randomness though, like I don't know if it was timed or not. I don't know what the revolutions were. It could have been 1 and 3. It could have been 1 and 2. I have no clue. You know, but as soon as those saws are actually spawned in, that's the thing, is they just keep on running. So I don't know if those saws are just, you know, like you have to do it in one go and that's it. And if you don't get it in one go, you might as well forfeit the entire path of pain. I don't know. I have no clue. So if it's timed correctly, where it's a 2-to-1 time cycle with the spears going up and down, and of course, this is a huge area. Everything's getting loaded at one point in time, and you've got to make sure that you just can't fail it, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I don't know any which way. I mean, maybe that when you get past a certain point that they just spawn in all the saw blades, and all the saw blades are automatically in the correct positions when you approach that point. Maybe. But at the same time, that's so annoying that the blades are moving. You have no vision of the area when you get into that area. And the blades are just completely in a wrong position or wrong orientation. And I've seen a little bit of that, and it's just like, hey, you can do it, and it's possible, but it's very, very hard to get to that point, and it's very hard to actually time it out. I wish I had a little bit more time to actually go through that, but I didn't.
I spent most of my time in the first area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So so that is what that is. If it were me and I were creating something like this, I would never really, I mean, like, you can have some things that are out of the vision of the player where it's like, oh, let me introduce you to this and you need to jump around this and that. Okay, well, I can adapt to that. That's not that hard. But when it's to the point where the saw blade, when it's registered in the system and the system loads it up, and that saw blade can be at any point and it's just a matter of timing, man, that is just hard because it's completely random, you know?
Yeah.
It is completely random. And I haven't had enough time. Maybe there was a timing to it where it's like every third blade or something like that. But again, I had no clue, and I have no clue because we're back here at the beginning and I didn't have enough time. So maybe there was something to that. Maybe add in something in the comments below on maybe it was 3 revolutions, that every 3 revolutions of those blade spikes coming up, that's when you go. I have no idea. Additional things to add into this, the animations. So the system of Hollow Knight. So basically anything within Hollow Knight, whether it be turning, whether it be doing your super dash, whether it be doing your heals, anything like that within animations. So I'm just going to read this off because it's in my log, but as so many other systems, I have to learn your system. Whatever platform you have, whether it be Mario Maker, whether it be Warframe, whether it be Smash Brothers or anything like that, I have to learn your system. Okay, so if you have turning in a certain way, if you have, because there's several frames that go into turning, there's several frames that go into healing, there's several frames that go into super dashing, anything of that sort, any animation that you do and that you program into your game, I have to learn specifically your system. Not every single game is all the same time, because for Hollow Knight I have downward slash. With Mario you have no, I don't believe you actually have any version of downward dash. Mario doesn't have a sword, I don't believe.
No.
In any of the games. So with that on the side, every system is completely different. So with this in particular, I have to learn everything about the system, especially when it gets to this critical point of doing the entire path of pain, depending if it's a good system or not, or if I like it or not. So some games, people might like that system a little bit more. Some games, you might not like it as much. Jump animation lag, time response time lacking, just based upon the in-game system. So basically, if I have, if I want to jump for my second jump, this is the big one, especially on part 3, section 3 of doing the entire path of pain. My second jump for the Mothwing, you cannot count on actually happening most of the time. If you're doing a downward slash on your pogo jumping off of blades, that's pretty useful because then you can get that downward slash and then immediately jump. That gives you a lot of jump height. That's where it's actually useful. But if you're trying to go underneath a blade or you're trying to just jump around underneath something, you're going to have a good 80% of the time that you're just going to jump into something, or that the jump is going to be registered way too late and you're actually going to hit something and you're going to take damage from that. So with the jump animation, for the second animation of that, it's really late, it's really laggy, it's just inconsistent. The only time that you can really consistently rely upon it is if you're doing pogo hop jumping and then you do your second jump off of that. That's the only time where that is actually useful. Exiting animations and turning animations, so like especially these animations where you're trying to do super dash or anything like that. Again, the system where you're up against the wall like this, right? I have no button to cancel this. Not that I know of. I have nothing that I can do that I can cancel this animation. I am stuck in this animation until I release the button, until it executes. There needs to be a cancel for this.
Yeah.
And
You have to do it really quick.
like right there, you couldn't cancel
I
it.
couldn't cancel mine.
Yeah. So right there, there's
there we go,
certain
I
things that you
canceled it.
can't do. And same thing with healing. If you're hitting heal and then you exit that heal, it takes you a whole half of a second or an eighth of a second to exit out of that healing animation for you to do anything. And a lot of the time, especially even in the Coliseum of Fools, I find myself, I heal, there's the ground spikes, they're coming up, I need to jump, and I would finish my heal only to have the spikes come up regardless because my knight wouldn't jump. The animation time to exit the heal was so long that my jump would not go because he was still out trying to finish out the heal animation.
Yeah.
I like it when the system is responsive to the point where it's literally no frames, nothing. I don't like having any animation lag. I don't like having to exit any animation. If I have to play on any system, I want absolutely zero exiting animations, any animations where the animations are conflicting one another. I want the animations to be smooth. And the best game I could actually say this for is actually Warframe. Because when you're looking at even the base form of Warframe or even to the now of Warframe, every button that you press is as fast as the system can actually register it.
Yeah.
Because if you've actually played for Warframe for quite a long time, there are rare instances where it's like, oh man, this animation takes forever, such as Equinox or Necros or something like that. That's super annoying.
Or Limbo.
Or Limbo, where the animations last so long for your abilities. But when you're talking about regular gameplay where I'm taking the attack button and I'm just hitting something or whatever, it is super fast and super responsive on, hey, I'm throwing my haiku, the haiku hit. I love that.
Yeah.
When you're talking about Hollow Knight, oh, I have the turning animations, and the animation takes a certain amount of time to actually turn, especially midair, and I'm trying to turn midair, and oh, that turn didn't happen when I thought it would happen, and, you know, I turned, but I did dash right after that, right? Well, my turn didn't register in time. So instead of me turning, and then I dash this way, well, my turn didn't register at all, so I dashed this way. Oh, now I gotta recover on that way.
Yeah.
Because the turn didn't register. And the same thing in Super Smash Brothers. There's several times where I will physically turn my analog stick. And I do some animation, whatever the animation is, and it does not register. And it's literally like the buttons are seconds away from each other. And I do my turn, and then I hit the button. And Super Smash Bros. Will not register certain key inputs with certain characters. So you turn and you do your ability or whatever it is, but it won't register the turn because the ability overtakes whatever it is. Or I don't know if the system lags or if the system just completely ignores it. Whatever the case is, it'll just completely ignore your turn. And I've had that with not only Hollow Knight, but Smash Bros. And Smash Bros. Is one I can definitely kind of ping on that because I've had that several times. Smash Bros.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put in my notes as well. I like the system to be responsive, and Hollow Knight has a delay, however small, between animations. The most noticeable one being focus and heal. I completely agree. Focus and heal is the most annoying one where you're doing your heals. Exiting that, so annoying. But yeah, with skill, with any of the animations, with your timing, with anything, mainly practice makes perfect. Time and dedication to doing whatever you're doing, whether it be Hollow Knight, whether it be Super Smash Bros, whatever the system may be. But the thing is systems always change. We're gonna have Smash Bros Ultimate. We're gonna have the next version of Smash Bros Prime. We're gonna have the new version of whatever. It's always going to change. The system's always going to change. The animations are always going to change. They're going to change things up all the time. And the thing is you have to learn what their system is. So you have to learn a completely new system. So depending if you're good on learning things, if you're good on learning the turning times, if you're good on learning to micromanage your buttons or to micromanage units, depends on whatever the system is. And if you, again, like it or not. If you like the system or not, it depends on how well you like the system and how much time you're actually going to invest in the game. Time and dedication to Hollow Knight, yeah, just especially time and dedication to Hollow Knight, like how much time am I going to actually spend on a game, and how much do I like the game, and how well does it respond to my movements and everything else. That's going to determine how well I'm going to actually perform in a game. If I don't like the game very much, and it's being super critical at certain points, and hey, you know what, I just don't like the game, and the game isn't really, it's not really fitting my key set and where I'm really good at, I'm not going to play it all the way through, because if I'm not going to like the game, I'm not going to like the rest of I'm not going to like the rest of the gameplay. There's several games that I really, really love and I really, really enjoy, and I will take the time to get the system down to actually, like, especially the basic Super Smash Bros. N64. I love NES. I beat 3 Donkey Kongs on level 9 on Super Smash Bros. 9. That's something I like to put a star on my chest and be like, hey, I beat the computer at super, like, 3 level 9 Donkey Kongs, which are, Donkey Kong is like the most annoying NPC in the entire N64 version of that, and I beat 3 of them with NES. I believe we had all 3 stocks, so I had to take all their 9 stocks off with my 3 stocks. And I was like, wow. I love that because I loved the system. And then of course they change everything, and it comes down to a time where it's like, hey, you know what? I don't like this game anymore, or it's not like I don't like a game anymore, but it's more so I don't like a system because of certain aspects of it. Whether it be, especially with Super Smash Bros., the N64, I don't believe there was a lot of lag time in between animations. I believe the animations just as executed. There wasn't a lot of turning animations but yeah, it just depends on the game, and just depends on how good you are at the game and how much you like the game, especially those two things in tandem. Because if you really don't like the game, you're not gonna really play it all that much. It depends on the player, because like for me, I don't really like playing a lot of the specific type of games. I could say, for definition, I don't like playing a certain specific types of games. I could probably sit down and go, hey, you know what? When I was younger, I really didn't like playing this game or that game because I just didn't like it. Because it took too much of my time, because it was too time consumption, and I really didn't play them. I really didn't get to know all of the system within those games because I wasn't really time involved. I wasn't really invested. Yeah. But for Hollow Knight, it's a pretty good game. I really like it for what it is. But there are some kind of like nitpicky things that I go into and I go, hey, you know what? I just don't like this. And that's just me, because I don't like having my reaction times delayed at all. I don't have the patience to wait around for the system to register what I'm doing when I'm already doing it. And especially when I know that there are older systems that just ran so cleanly and they had no lag issues and no issues at all. And then you come into Hollow Knight and you go, wait a minute, why am I waiting for this to happen? Why am I waiting for that to happen? Again, that's just completely annoying, and just depends on you which games you actually like. And then of course, if you see anyone doing really, really well at Hollow Knight or anything like that, they've either done this before where they've played multiple different platforms and they've done really, really well doing those platforms, whether it be Mario Maker or Warframe or whatever the game is. And when they come over to this, it just becomes natural to them. So it's basically prior experience, or first time playing Hollow Knight and I beat the Path of Pain, no go. That's super rare. That's super rare that a player is actually that good. And if you're that good on the first go, great. But it's just not me. For me, I took a full 4 hours to get this done, and I would believe almost for an average player that it would take you about 4 hours to actually beat this. So yeah. Some other notes from some other games that kind of come into play as well here. The strain and stress of actually doing it. Extreme platforming. So it takes a toll on your mind and on your hands, especially when I keep on bringing this into existence, and I'm actually going to accurately quote this now. Banjo and Tooie with Canary Mary's race in Cloud Cuckoo Land, which I believe is the third race that you do within Banjo and Tooie. But within this race, you have to spam the button so hard that I've heard reports, whether it be players that actually play the game or whether it be YouTube videos, which I've seen a few hands and casts, but they will break not only controllers, but they'll break fingers trying to mash the button fast enough to actually beat this race. And this is to the point where it's like, this is unacceptable, not only on a safety level where it's like, hey, you're breaking your finger playing this game, but also they're not just breaking the controller because they rage quit. They break the controller because they mash the button so hard that they actually break the button over several attempts. And these are brand new controllers. So not only on a safety point, but also on just wear and tear. This is too much in some cases where you're pushing the button too hard or too often, or whatever the case is, where the game is literally harder than it's supposed to be, and you're breaking yourself over the game. And especially on your mind, especially over if you have to do this over 4 hours, like even Hollow Knight. Like I like Hollow Knight, I like it for what it is, and I did attempt this over 4 hours, so I do like this. But again, going into 10, 12 hours or whatever it is, if it takes too long, you're going to have a lot of strain, especially if you cannot stop. And you feel like you can't stop, which especially in Hollow Knight's case, you cannot stop. You have to do this all in one run. So especially when you can't stop, that puts a toll on your mind where it's like, hey, you know what? I have to do this all in one run, all in one go, and that really wears down on you. Especially having to be accurate and that critical for so long. Yeah, I'm just going through my notes, just trying to get it through here. Yeah, especially duration based on top of platforming difficulty. This can really wear down on you. Of course, we took a break, and of course, yeah, you have to do it all in one run. There's no benches, the wear and tear on the keyboard controller. Replug your, yeah, okay, yeah. Completely agree there. It's a wear and tear, not only on you, but also on whatever your device is that you're using, whether you're using controller or you're using keyboard, whether you're on PC or whatever device you're using to actually play whatever the game is. If it's intense like this, or even like Banjo-Tooie, where it's you're doing this race, you can break things. You can break your controller, and hopefully they come out with a revamped version of that where it's just easier, or maybe they have something else extra added into that race where it just makes it easier, because people have broken fingers on that, and people have definitely broken controllers trying to actually, and brand new controllers, straight up brand new controllers trying to actually play that course. Some improvements that could be suggestions as in within Mario Maker or other games. I love making courses, but for some improvements, if especially if you're gonna do this hard, this difficult, make only 1 or 2 sections. Don't go beyond that. If you're going to 3 sections, 4 sections, it's got to be easy to the point where the player can actually do it, and it's acceptable, and you can do it within 90 minutes. The entrance being easier to locate, this entrance is ridiculous. I think I've mentioned this already, but again, like, this entrance should be made so that you can actually figure it out and find it. If you're going to put it into the point where no one's supposed to actually find it, you might as well just delete it from the game. I don't know. That's kind of extreme on my part to say that, but at the same time, it's like, how are you actually supposed to find something if you can never find it? And I get that there's Easter eggs and there's things that you could find eventually after so many years, but everything in your game should be able to be easily found, should be easily accessible, so that people can actually play it. And where it's hidden away like that, I like things where you can find them. It's like a tool. It's like, I want to be able to find my wrench. Well, I don't want to go through, 7 Russian dolls to just go and get my wrench out of 7 Russian dolls. It's kind of ridiculous. So again, make the entrance easier to find. Maybe a fog wall, and like I said at the very beginning, I believe it was. So making it like an illusionary wall or a cracked wall. Maybe make the difficulty easier, especially for the end there. That was kind of annoying that I couldn't finish it out. I wish I had a little bit more time to actually get that one down. But again, like having to take 4 hours, make the difficulty a little bit easier, maybe even make it a shorter run. Have there be waypoints. This would be so easy that if there were waypoints, if you had either benches or shortcuts to your most recent point, that would have made the entire run a lot easier. Having especially benches, having the charm swapping availability, I would actually say waypoints in this case. If you had waypoints where you could just like break through a wall here or there and then just have a fast travel to getting from, section, 2 to section 3 to section 4, and just have it so you can break walls going through, and then have it so that you can easily get to the last section and just kind of build your way through that. That would be a lot easier. Not much to say there, especially when you're doing charm swapping availability. You could have it where the player just goes all the way back to the beginning, swaps out some charms, and then just goes through the holes that they make through the entire course. That would be what I would call acceptable. But kind of my final thoughts on that was just have it be a 90-minute run rule. It's just, if the developer cannot complete the run within 90 minutes, you need to scrap the idea, whatever it is, because if it's going to be that hard, it's going to be too difficult for the normal average player to play and to get through, especially with 90 minutes. What happens, especially Hollow Knight, you got a full 4 hours that we've been doing this, right?
Yeah.
What happens if your device crashes, if you have a power outage, if the game bugs out, or if the game crashes, or if you have to replug in a controller or keyboard because something happened to your keyboard controller, whether it be rage quit and someone broke their controller but they still wanted to continue on, or if they legitimately, if they honestly just broke the controller because they were trying too hard to actually get through a section, they broke the analog stick. And especially with a controller, an analog stick is pretty easy to break, especially there's only one spring in there that you have to break to completely render the controller useless. So if you have to replug in a new controller to get through the Path of Pain, do you have to restart the entire computer? Or, well, not restart the entire computer, but restart Hollow Knight so that Hollow Knight registers that there's a new device being used for Hollow Knight. If you have to do that, then you have to restart the entire Path of Pain. So again, having it underneath 90 minutes, there is a reason for this, is because if anything happens, it's easy to pick off of where you were and be able to continue and actually finish out the section. That's why they call it a section, is just have it a 90-minute section. But where it's this long of a section, if you're really good at it, you could get it down in 5 minutes or whatever, and you can get it done in 5 minutes. But where it's this long of a section, and it takes me and you, and I'm not super good at Hollow Knight, but I'm kind of good at Hollow Knight, but it takes me and you 4 hours, it needs to be done in a shorter section. And especially going through Hollow Knight in and of itself, why aren't these sections put throughout the entirety of Hollow Knight as challenges, mini challenges, and have multiple different memories throughout Hollow Knight rather than just one memory? You could have had more opportunity for more things that you could put out throughout Hollow Knight, and just having the whole thing be just in one section in one area. Like, you had the whole game to put this in through the entire Hollow Knight, and you didn't take the time to actually make sections more difficult than they are.
Yeah.
Like, you could have just taken like section 1 and 2 and put it in one area, and you could have taken section 3 and 4 and put it in an entire different area. But You chose to slam it all on this one really hard section. And if there's anyone having as much trouble as I am, or that you are, trying to get through this section, they're taking 4 hours to actually do it. You know, anything happens, you reset, you know, just saying.
It's called the path of pain for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're really good at it, great, but, like, this takes a little bit too long to do. The point of dying, though, especially when you're doing a boss or anything like that, is to learn the boss. Especially with Grim, that was wonderful. Grim was really, really good.
Oh yeah, I didn't mind him.
Yeah, I liked the point of dying for him was actually learning the boss. But the point of platforming is you learn the extremities of, as I've said before, of the game system. How far can you jump? How far, how long can you put up with this for? And, well, not really put up, well, sometimes actually putting up with it for, because especially too with Banjo-Tooie, there's a certain point where you can say spamming can actually break a controller. And the same thing with Mario Party. Same thing with Mario Party. You can spam something and you can actually break a controller. So there's an extremity of how far you can actually go with the game to make it difficult. And I would actually put a timestamp of 90 minutes on that, or spamming a button to the point where you can break it. There should be a point where, hey, you know what? We need to put a line in the sand and go, hey, you know what? Spamming a button for so long you can break a finger, you can break a controller. This is not acceptable for the game to actually have this in here because you can end up breaking something.
How long was the race for Canary Mary?
It was not long. It took like 90 seconds or 2 minutes, or I think the exact time was 2 minutes and 30 seconds to do the Canary Mary race. But you're spamming the button for that long. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if it was 90 seconds, but it was around 2 minutes. But like the amount of spamming you had to do. And I actually beat it without having a macro or not having a turbo controller. I actually beat it.
Wow.
But I had to spam the button so fast. It was ridiculous. I'm not doing that again. If I have to do that again, I'm putting a macro on it, and I'm just pushing the macro every 5 seconds.
I mean, I would at least want to try without the macro with me.
Yeah, maybe one of these days we'll do Banjo-Tooie and you can see how hard it is. And I'm just going to program a macro in the background.
I mean, I'm good at spamming buttons.
Yeah, I'm just going to program a macro because I'm not playing with it. I'm just going to program a macro to just every half second, or let's see, every 1/8 of a second, just push the button for me, and I'll just press that button every 5 seconds. Just have the time of my life, just sitting and chilling, sipping. You'll be sweating, trying to press the button as fast as you can. Break your controller. Oh my goodness.
Well,
But yeah. Especially though Banjo-Kazooie, but here's some ideas too, just kind of as an ending thing here. It's not impossible. You can definitely do it. I wish, again, that I was at the end and that I could try that out some more. I wish there was some fast travel that I could actually try out the end and be able to beat it. There's just not. There are some near or impossible games that there are. Bullet hell games, like I've mentioned before, and I've told you about some a little bit too. Some bullet hell games are completely not humanly possible. You cannot beat those games. The one game to the extreme, they actually had to take the game and they had to run it at 20% speed. So they slowed it down to 20% of its original speed, or 1/5 of the value of its original speed, to actually be able to beat it. And they couldn't even have a human actually beat it. They had to have an AI go in there and finally go around the bosses and actually beat the final boss of the game. So they actually had an AI to actually beat the game.
oh my goodness.
So that's to the point where it's like, this is ridiculous. Some games you can't even beat. And, sometimes you just have to go, you know what? The game's ridiculous at this point, and you have to just kind of give up. Same thing with Melania. I could not beat her with melee. Some people can. Great. Kudos to you. You can beat her. But for me, I just couldn't. And that was really, really extreme.
Yeah, you had to use my build.
And I had to cheat. I had to use your build. And you killed her on the first time.
I did kill her.
And
on
I was
the
trying
first
with
go.
melee. I died over, I think it was around 200 times.
It was 200 times.
And I was just like, no, this is not possible. So again, like there are extremities, there are points where you just go, you know what, this is too hard for a normal person to actually do. And you just have to go, you know what, if people can get it down, and great, good for you, you can beat it. But for me, that's a little bit too hard for me. And the
Yeah.
same thing with, and this is a legendary one, Tetris. Tetris, it took 34 years to finally beat Tetris. And in fact, he didn't even beat Tetris. Because to beat the game, there is no end to Tetris.
Really?
There is literally no end to Tetris.
There's no end?
Yeah. So the old game, the reason why they say, oh, the game was beaten or it was finished, is because at a certain point the game crashes because of a code line or whatever it was. But
What?
the entire reason that, oh, I beat Tetris is because the game crashes. There are systems now that can run Tetris, or, well, newer versions of Tetris, I'd have to say, but newer versions of Tetris that just straight up don't end. So you can say the game is literally unbeatable. Only after 34 years or whatever, they can finally beat that one version of Tetris, but only because the game crashes. So
Wow.
so in an event, you could say, oh, he beat the game. Well, yeah, but he beat the game by literally making the game bug out and crash. That's the only way that you can actually beat the game. So after 34 years, it wasn't like he really beat the game. It's more so that he actually made the game crash.
Wow.
So yeah, there's some games that are actually not meant to be beaten, and they're actually meant to just drive you insane or crazy, or maybe drive you to be better. Who knows? But yeah, for me though, the point isn't to make the game impossible. The point is to make the game fun and enjoyable. And I'd have to say, I've been recently playing more Party Animals. I played a little bit with you too. We had a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of it is the same thing with Ocarina of Time, is doing the Lolly Factory, or even doing the suitcase runs, where it's just like it's a little building and you're supposed to just drop as many suitcases in the end zone, or the big gummy bear.
I
in the
like
beginning.
the Lollipop
That
Factory.
is fun.
That one's my favorite
I-
because I like going for the giant
Yeah,
gummy
but
bear.
even like League of Legends or any of these other ones, it's a lot of competition, and even Party Animals, it's kind of like, especially with the PvP in it, it's kind of like Among Us. At some point, you just get really tired of people or players just making really silly moves or just kind of goofing around, and it's just kind of like, can I just play the game just to have fun? Especially when you're playing a game of Monopoly or some just, generic like Clue or anything like that. Can I just play the game to actually have fun? And that's where I really
Yeah.
enjoyed Party Animals, being able to play with the Lolly Factory. That was great.
I like the Lollipop Factory.
Beast Football, any of those games, those, like, you need to add more of those type of games into Party Animals, and just have just more, just, because the PvP areas are so small.
Mm-hmm.
Just to make them larger areas where you can just kind of have like PvP, even like within Warframe, I believe Lunario, being able to get the ball into the end zone or anything like that.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are really good game modes. And to be able to add more of those in. And like, I get platforming. This is great for what it is. I really like Hollow Knight for what it is. But I really enjoy a good game where it's just like, hey, let's just have sport like soccer or anything else like that. Let's have something that's fun for people to do together, and that's not just competitive. Like, who cares about the score? Who cares about winning? At the end of the day, as long as you try your best and you do your best, like, I don't care if I win or lose in soccer. I really more so care about having a good time. And even with this, it's just like, this is really extreme. So yeah, if you want to go ahead and try this out for yourself and see if you can't beat the Path of Pain, great. This is really hard. I wish I had a little bit more time to actually work with it and be able to finish it out, but I really didn't with this one. I just kind of regret, because I was right there at the end. I had no clue about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got some more Hollow Knight to do, but I believe that is all the time we have for this episode. Yes?
Unfortunately, yes.
And we will see you guys in the very next video. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye.